And it's another episode of the Dope Stroke Show today. And once again, Trotty has managed to get in on time. So clearly he's fixed his internet. And so has Bubs. I've been learning all about that this morning. So we should have no issues today, bar the banter and chat. That'll probably be the only problem we're likely to encounter. We've got a number of things to discuss, but one of the key points that we're going to go through today is data and how that should be used to improve your game, how the best players in the world use it for club fitting, what we can learn about it from a golf swing perspective, and a bunch of other things too. But first and foremost, how you doing, fellas? How's your spot, by the way, Bubs? I can tell that you've managed to get yourself back to the age of 15. You've got a spot on the middle of your forehead there. Looks fantastic, and rolling back the years.
I've been growing this for a few days, actually. It's been a work in progress. But yeah, like I remember being at school and having the issue of, feeling a spot coming on, getting a bit like worried about spots. And, I thought that was kind of done and dusty when you're in your 20s, but I'm 44 and still dealing with them. So I think it must be because I look and act so youthful that the spots still think they can appear on my face.
I think it's so big it needs its own passport. That's where I'm going.
It needs its own podcast.
Its own podcast, yeah. We've got our fourth guest, our fourth host.
So you'd have struggled then with social media back in the day. If you'd be bothered about going in with the spot, then you'd be bothered about some of the berating that you get on social media. No, you don't get a lot though. We've had this conversation, haven't we?
No. What I like about this is a podcast, so it could have gone unnoticed, but you've both just made everybody aware of it. So thank you for that.
I got some proper abuse over the last. TaylorMade put a post out with me on last week, and I just got absolutely hammered for it. Absolutely hammered.
What was that? I didn't see that post.
I was working on something basic. I don't know if you do when you hit balls and you're filming, and it's great and stuff. And I was hitting some shots, and I was doing that drill that is like the Bennett plumber drill. So you put the right foot back, and you get more turn basically, and you synchronize everything. Like Charles Howell's pretty famous for it in today's game. And one of the guys is like, "Oh, let me film that." So he films it. So we do it. We put it out, and I've got these Adidas clothes, and I'm right in between medium and small with Adidas. And now I guess I was carrying a bit more timber last year, so I was rolling with a medium. So this post's gone out, and I'm wearing this like relaxed fit as well. Just the comment, no one says a word about like, "Oh, thanks for the drill. Oh, that'll work. Oh, I'll try that next week." It's just like, you look like a prick, basically. You look like a prick. Your sizes are too small, too big. You can't get dressed. You're an idiot. Well, who's this twat? I'm just like, well, okay. So imagine if I'd have done that with a spot. That's where I was going.
Where's this video? Because I need to go throw my hat in the ring and comment.
Yeah, it's on TaylorMade. You should do it. They didn't tag me in it, which was great. They did tag me, but there's no mention of, so no one knows who the hell it is. I'm just getting abuse. It's just cool. I'm just up there for the abuse. And then they stick.
Well, I'm sat here in the podcast studio at the office, and Lauren's in here with me, who's recording this podcast, and she's chuckling away. So I reckon it was probably her that put all the abuse out for you, Trotty.
I reckon.
You're just lucky that I just don't care. You know what I mean? I'm just I'm in that little generational bubble of like, I really don't care. It is
crocodile
what it is.
Skin.
Exactly. It is what it is. Like my information, don't like my information, abuse me. I'm here for it all.
That is an invite if I've ever heard. Go on, guys. If you listen to this podcast show, get on to Trotty's channels and give that abuse.
All right, we're gonna get Lauren to post in the chat. We're gonna get her to rate Trotty's fit out of 10. So she doesn't have to jump on. She can go find the video on social on TaylorMade's thing, and then she can in the studio chat she can rate your fit out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna change to smalls next year. I think I'm gonna go this year. When I get up,
one thing I will comment though is I'm quite happy with your hat that you're donning on there, Trotmeister. Ryder Cup 2025, very old school branded looking. I'm quite happy with that. It looks good.
Oh, Lauren's going to be 10 out of 10. She's got you back.
10 out of 10. Lauren, what are you doing to us?
That must be the wrong video, Lauren. Keep looking.
Yeah, watching the wrong one.
You know that Lauren's my favourite, and I know that other than that spot, I'm her favourite. So listen, on some actual more poignant news rather than me getting abuse on social media, which is par for the course. I put out some cracking videos if people fancy watching them as well, with some educational content, but also I didn't see it. I was very busy this weekend, but sad for Shane. Just threw away the win there in West Palm where he lives, which was devastating. I got to be honest. Looks like he struggled down 16, big, wide right, and then I assume he hit it in the drink on 17 as well. I mean, that, by the way, that finish is insane.
Mhm.
But I mean, legend of a bloke. And all I saw was what everyone else has seen on social media, which is his reaction, move on. That's why he's obviously a fantastic professional. I assume from the blank look, you lads didn't see it either. But from the names on the list, and there were a few journeymen, I was absolutely, obviously, really like Shane. He's such a nice guy. I just desperately wanted him to get that done for himself, Good lad.
So there's two things there. Firstly, I didn't see it live, but woke up this morning, obviously social, you kind of get a snapshot of what happened. Saw he hit it on the drink on 16, did it again on 17, threw it away, 3-shot lead, gone. Two things that I saw, which are quite surprising, because you look at what he's done, major champion, obviously won the Open in Ireland, incredible. Look what he did for the Ryder Cup for us not that long ago, basically took it at the last and won it. So clearly, he's been in pressure situations, but 6 times on the PGA Tour, he's held the 54-hole lead. And he's lost 5 and won 1. So 5 out of 6 he's thrown away, which is surprising. I didn't think that would be the stat. And the second thing that surprised me was I saw him hit it on the drink on 16, saw him hit the iron, camera pans, ball goes in the drink, then next thing I see him, he's dropped and he's hitting his next shot. But there was a post I saw this morning on Twitter, and it's like a shot link shot of the 16th where all the shots land. He is nowhere near anybody else. Like this thing that he's hit off the tee, he must have got it nowhere near the middle because he's like 30 yards short of everyone else and 40 yards right of everyone else. So this wasn't, like a 8 out of 10 shot that just leaked into the drink. This was like a really poor strike, which really surprised me. And then for him to follow it up on 17 to the same, I feel for him because he's a great guy, and obviously being European, I was rooting for him. But it just doesn't seem like a Shane Lowry type finish when you look at what else he's done. He's been in situations which arguably we could say have got more pressure, and he's come out of those shining, and this one he didn't.
The situations he's been in are insane. So he wins as an amateur on the European Tour against Rocky at home, gets bombarded on the green, wins a World Golf Championship, loves the big stage. Obviously, the Ryder Cup stuff, we've hit on that. He took what he did say was that he's never done that. So I was really interested when you said there about the 54-hole leads, and it got me thinking to Oakmont. Remember, he really didn't show up at Oakmont. He doubled the second, but that course is so difficult, like amazing golf course, so difficult. So I get it, but I think that it was more the shock of what had happened, and more the so 54-hole lead. I get it, 18 holes to play. There's a lot, in the pressure cooker of a tournament. But I think it was the 3 or 4 holes left situation that shook him up. And then I think that I didn't see that shot mapping, but I think it frames it, doesn't it? I think it shows you. I truly believe the more I play this game, I reckon it's once we're at the level that we're at, then even Daryl maybe's at, and it's like 90% mental. You know what I mean? I think it's 95% mental. I really do. I mean, Dazzler, you don't play. You play once every now and again.
But
I know Bubsy doesn't. And I know Bubsy doesn't play. But that's mental because, I mean, you've had 25 years of getting battered, and then all of a sudden you've just decided I'm going to beat you. And then you play me basically once. You play me once when I'm at my weakest and you beat me. And now you're dining out on it, and it's going to go. Yeah. But let's just also say you don't beat me gross. You beat me with all your little
whoa. Hang on.
Your little shots that you carry out because you totally suck, which is fine. But the point I'm trying to make, keep it back on Shane, is I think that the game's mental. I think that shows it. And I think we've as golfers, what we can learn here, you got to move on. You got to move. And he's already said, done next Thursday, I'll be at Bay Hill, moved on. Do I ever tell you boys, talking Ryder Cup headwear, I worked Ryder Cup room at the Belfry years ago. We've never really touched on these stories, I don't think, on here. So we all got to... Bubsy, did you work a Ryder Cup room? Where were you that week?
Slightly less glamorous role than you. So you were basically mixing it with the players. And I was walking down the first hole at 5:15 in the morning with a 7-foot rake that weighed about 20 kilos, tasked with raking all the bunkers before 6:30. So you were
That
living it
went
up,
very well.
surrounding yourself with all the players, and I was there having it out with this rake.
And and they must have taught you how to rake, because Johnny Watts, bless him, put it on his YouTube channel.
In all fairness,
Yeah,
though, we did get a raking lesson.
Yeah. So tell us about the perfect rake job.
And actually, before we go into this, another shining moment from that Ryder Cup. I remember, obviously, the Ryder Cup, even back then, it was colossus event, huge. And before the Ryder Cup, a load of things started happening. I remember Simon coming to me and saying, "Look, there's going to be some adverts."
The old boss, Simon.
There's going to be some adverts that are run during the Ryder Cup that are kind of like happening when the ad breaks come in. And he was like, "Do you want to be featured?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do. I want to be in these adverts.
It was for Viagra, wasn't it, or something?
I mean, take the punchline if you want there, mate.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
I mean, there's the punchline. So I was featuring these adverts wearing a caddy's vest, which was for Pfizer. I didn't know what Pfizer was until they launched, and it was for Viagra. So I'm there, advertising Viagra and raking bunkers.
And that's where your sponsorship journey began, right?
Yeah. Think about how much you get for that, Bubsy.
Well, I didn't get anything back then, that's for sure.
You didn't even get a box of the stuff. You didn't get a free box.
I didn't get a free box, no. Didn't get a rake either.
So run us through the correct technique. Talk us through a day in the life of the Ryder Cup. And this was what, 2001? We're going back, aren't we?
Just to frame this a little bit as well for those that are listening, the Ryder Cup was meant to be 2001, 2 weeks before the Ryder Cup took place.
Yeah.
The incident in New York happened, 9/11, which meant then that the Ryder Cup was cancelled for that year, because naturally the US players, and to be honest, not many people wanted to travel during that time.
That and the meant respect of the situation.
Of course, yeah, of course. And then the year that meant that the Ryder Cup took place in 2002, and that was why the Ryder Cup was played on even years since then, up until the pandemic. And then when the pandemic, that event cancelled, it's reverted back to the odd numbers. So yeah, for a little bit of a history lesson for some, that's how that works. But yeah,
that was bonkers, wasn't it? I remember we lived in a little town called Faisley, or Tamworth, basically. And McD and I drove past the news agents, and it was like we just finished work. 9/11 had happened the day before, I think, because I was playing in a match play event and didn't have a clue what was going on. Tournament finished. I got knocked out in like the quarters or something. Drove back, and the next day we went to get a paper, and just the news agents was empty, wasn't it? Empty. Completely in the mid, but in the middle of rural, like Midlands, UK. Just crazy. This would have been dial-up internet then. The internet wouldn't have been what it is now. It was more like chat rooms and crap.
We had that TV down the practice range. It had a golf shaft in it for signal. So yeah, it was a very different time trying to get the news. And yeah, everyone always knows where they were. And I was on site at the Belfry, and I was driving back into the clubhouse to do. I think I was doing a par 3 challenge, and Will Barnes was taken over. And
another one of the lads.
And we then swapped along that the first fairway where the PGA course is. And he said, "Oh, mate, have you seen the news? Have you seen the news?" I said, "No, mate, I've been selling Mars bars and par 3 challenges out on the 14th of the PGA, so not really. What's happened?" And he said, "Mate, you got to check it out." But the planes flew into the building, and then I went inside, and that was when I saw everything that was happening, etc. But yeah, couldn't believe it. Obviously, super sad what happened there, and it's I think it's the kind of thing that'll always be remembered for the rest of our lives for sure, and so on and so forth. It was a tragic day. But
I'm just sat here like, and we're going to get to the how to rake a bunker, which we never thought we were getting when we had a data podcast. No. But I'm just thinking about times back then, and they built a £1 million driving range, right? This thing was phenomenal. And the Midlands, for those that don't know it, it's like the middle point between the north and the south. So it would get a lot of traffic. The southern boys would come up like 2.5 hours, and the northern guys probably wouldn't come down because they weren't as affluent as the southern lads. But it was a good place to buy golf clubs and stuff. But before it, they had this driving range, and just anyone, if there's anyone listening to this who's like new into the industry, and I know it's a much different time, but just some of the jobs we used to do on that old driving range, they had like this, Bubsy talks here fondly of memories like a 7-foot rake. You'd have like this garden hoe thing that had these 2 prongs that came off it. And one of the jobs you had to do, which you'd start at 5:30 a.m., was to walk out into the frozen mud and ice chip the balls out of the mud before you'd then put them into this ball washer. And this ball washer was like probably 14 feet long. This is the original one, 14 feet long. And you'd pile the balls. It was a barrel, exactly. Something that looked like been on a pirate ship. And you'd throw the balls in and they'd be caked in mud. And then you'd have to put like, it was like an industrial soap liquid in there. And I remember coming in one day at like 8 a.m. and it was like an Ibiza foam party. It just got me thinking about it because you mentioned Will Barnes, who is just, I'd love to speak to Barno again. He's such a great lad. He was one of the nicest guys you could meet. Everyone was mates with Will Barnes. He lives in the north of England now, I believe.
I will add those 5 a.m. ball picks, which we all had to do. I mean, some people would say, do you know what? It was part of the job. It wasn't part of the job. We weren't paid for that. We were just told you had to go in outside of your work hours. So whilst it should have been an enjoyable time, we basically just walked around the outfield, unplugging balls, moaning to each other about why we were going at 5 o'clock.
But it was a genius business idea. There was like 17 of us who came in together. And that's how we all met. And we might have touched on it in this podcast before, but back to the story. So obviously I turn up and I'm like, oh, bloody hell, what's going on here? And Barno comes out of the foam, just out of the foam. And he's like, oh, I'm like, what's going on? And then behind him, I think, was Daydog, like Alex Day, who's a kid who's ended up in the Middle East, I think. Really tall lad. And they're both like struggling to breathe because they've overdone the foam into the barrel. Daydog's like trying to empty the room out of stuff that might be important. And there's like impact bags coming out and 1998 training aids are just going everywhere. The coffee machine comes out. And I'm like, what are you boys doing? We've put too much foam in the ball machine. And I'm like, oh, geez, it was hilarious. Just hilarious. And then another fond memory that came to mind then just thinking about it is there was a mate of ours we mentioned him before, Louis, Welsh lad, really funny. And there was a coffee machine, and it wasn't a very good coffee machine. Like the equivalent would be like an entry-level Keurig here in the States. And they had like, you could do a hot chocolate or you could do a tea, obviously England, cappuccino, whatever. And Louis, and it was ridiculous. It was like, even back then, like £5, so $750 for a freaking cup of crap coffee. And Louis had figured out that if you mixed the hot chocolate with the cappuccino, you could get basically a mocha. And there was this fella from the Northeast, diamond of a bloke, a bit older than us. He'd probably be like 20 years older than us, teacher. You boys know what I'm talking about. His name's Derek Simpson. And he just was just an animal teacher, just like old school, had a video camera, always in a good mood, just like get on the range. I'm teaching. I'm going to make me money. I'm going to earn me graft. I've got my kids at home. I've got my I live locally. I'm a local hero. And he's such a good bloke. And he was he had one of these cappuccino and hot chocolate things once that Louis had put together. I mean, retail price on it would be flipping $15. And he didn't know Louis's name. So because he was Welsh, the nickname he would give him was Blodwyn. So everyone was called Young Man in the first year, except for Louis, who was called Blodwyn. So he'd be like, he's a Geordie. So he'd be like, hey, Blodwyn, get us one of them mochachinos. I'm going up the range with juniors. It was just freaking awesome. So Louis would drift off into this barrel room, whip up a mochaccino, leg it up to the range with the mochaccino, all these buckets of balls. I mean, again, just if you think about like people's journey, and we're going to get into data and how that impacts people's journey, how things have changed. I mean, I passed a post this morning about jobs and AI and January being a record or being the lowest year since 2009 that businesses have taken on new employees. Obviously, new year, new employees. And it's some business account I follow. And it was like, we could be moving into a new era. This could be troublesome. It's 2009 was the last time that this fewer amount of people were employed in the month of January. Is this as a result of AI? Blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you, anyone out there looking to clean golf balls and pick golf balls out the ice, AI can't do that shit, boys. So if you absolutely want to get in the golf industry, then get yourself a mochaccino and get down the range and pick yourself some balls out of the ice. That's all I got for you.
I've got to remind you about Decker as well, because that's the guy we're talking about from the northeast. So this was all pretty much our first jobs. We'd come out of different places. We're all kind of 18, 19, 20s, and we don't really know the rules. We don't know what goes on. We're in our first job. He's a little bit rogue. He tries to play outside of the boundaries of what he should do. So we'd be working on the driving range, and he'd always pull his car up and be like, "Are you working on the range, young man?" But yeah, go and wash my car. And we'd be like washing his car. We're all going like, should we really be doing this? Is there not like things we should be doing, like picking the golf balls up? And he'd make us wash his car.
Absolute legend of a bloke.
We wouldn't say no, because we're like, okay, yeah, it's my first job. I'll just do what I'm told to do.
Just the best guy ever. I remember being back in town for Dazzler's stag do, and we ended up in Birmingham the night before. But in Sutton Coldfield, I ended up staying at Derek's house. Just woke up at Derek's house the day after. Woke up in his son's bed. His son was off to uni or something, or wherever he was. And he's like, his missus is cruising around. Anne-Marie, she's great. She's like, Trotty, do you want a cheese and ham toasty? And I'm like, yeah, defo, get one going. Just the best.
Anyway, let's get back to the perfect way to rake a bunker. And actually, before Bubs tells you this on an audio podcast, if you would like to see this as an out-and-out demonstration, just get yourself onto YouTube, go and follow. I think
Johnny
it's True
Watts.
Golf. He is Johnny Watts, and you'll find a video on there, the best way to rake a bunker, and it is an absolutely legendary video. Make sure you go and watch it.
I mean,
go on, Bubs. How do you do it?
At what point in a YouTube journey is that? I mean, I wonder how many views that video's got. I'm going to check it out. Bubsy, you tell the story. I'll see if I can find it.
Do you know what? I haven't really got a lot to tell. I just remember being told I was raking bunkers. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I've been in a fair few bunkers in my time. I can rake a bunker. But actually, there was a little bit to it. So we were told that we had to walk into the bunker. And these weren't like the rakes that you find at a regular golf course. These were like, I guess, Ryder Cup rakes that had been bought in, especially for the week. And they were, I didn't over-exaggerate at the start. These were huge, heavy rakes. And we had to go from, this really isn't an interesting story, up against the lip and then pulling the sand back towards your feet as you walked back out of the bunker. And I'm like one hole in and my back is in bits. And then we got round and we started on the front nine, the back nine. And then I don't know if you remember the 14th hole, par 3. It's changed now, but there was that bunker on the left. And I remember walking off that tee, going, and the greenkeeper was like, right, you go and start at the front part of this bunker. And I was looking at him going, you want me to rake the front part of this bunker? And the guy's like, yeah, it's got to be perfect. I'm like, these are like these best 0.5% golfers on the planet. This hole is 160 yards. And this bunker starts 50 yards off the tee. I don't think there's anyone going to be going to this bunker during this week. I don't think I need to rake this. I don't think anyone's going anywhere near this. He's like, look, it's on telly. It's got to be perfect. That bunker was huge. That took me, it wasn't just me. There was about a team of us. That must have taken us 45 minutes just to rake that one. So yeah, in as far in your bunker as you can, pull the sand back to you. Perfectly straight groove lines, not horizontal, straight back. That was how they wanted it.
There you go.
And I did.
I think you had to rake towards the bunker. They had to give it a little sand flick towards that, not the bunker, the hole.
Towards the pin.
You had to flick the sand towards the hole. Yeah, the pin.
I don't remember that. I was just told they had to walk in.
We'll have to watch that video. We'll have to watch that video.
We'll have to watch Johnny Tenerife's video. I thought you had to rake towards the pin too.
And then I'm doing that, and then you look over your shoulder, and the greenkeeper's on one of those sit-on things. I'm like, hang on, why have I not got one of them?
Clearly a young apprentice learning your craft.
And then you see some of these golf courses, they turn the rakes upside down to do the perimeter.
I like that.
Yeah, were you doing that or not?
I think they were doing that, because they want the ball to roll into the flat of the bunker, don't they? So, it's around, 3 feet, 4 feet? It's pretty smooth. And you see that quite commonly now. So, that was done by another team. But, that's how the ball, if it just falls into the bunker, it kind of falls into the middle. So
you had an incline flattener team and you had a rake team.
Different jobs.
I don't think Johnny Tenerife has that in his video. I found this video. So it went out 10 years ago, and it's only got 5.1K views, and it's 3 minutes and 51 seconds. I think we need to set a task here to see if we can get that thing to 10K views.
I was just thinking the same thing.
We've got to double it. I'm going to go out there today and just say, listen, when this episode goes live, I'm going to be like, look, we've basically gone for this in the dope stroke. Old mate of mine, best video ever. To appreciate this week's episode, watch this video.
We'll see if we can get to 10K.
Oh, Johnny Tenerife, what a boy.
Yeah.
So,
But I tell you what,
Johnny, how about, hang on a minute, mate. So,
Oh,
Johnny
yeah,
Tenerife,
actually, we've stumbled across a story here, haven't we?
Johnny Tenerife came about because the poor kid couldn't break 80. So, Tenerife's a little island off of Spain and Africa and Portugal area. And basically, it's always in the 80s temperature. So, that obviously Fahrenheit. So, he gets called Johnny Tenerife. So Barno, back to Barno. Barno's a good player. The kid that was in the barrel ball washroom, come out of the Ibiza phone party with Alex Day. Basically, Barno, decent player, plays a lot of events, and comes up to me and says to me, because me and him played a lot of golf, and he comes up to me at one of the events, and Johnny Tenerife's having a shocker, like playing poorly. And obviously he's one of our boys, so we're rooting for him because he's one of the Belfry lads. And Barno comes up to me, he goes, bloody hell, Trotty, like, you've nicknamed him Johnny Tenerife. He should be Johnny New Delhi. He said he's going to shoot in hundreds here today. So for about 6 months, he was Johnny New Delhi. I mean, Dazzler, you were a bad player, but you were never Dazzler New Delhi.
No, I was never there. I was in the 70s a fair amount, but yeah, certainly a lot of 80s as well. But yeah, high 80s, low 90s. I wasn't that kind of golfer.
Yeah, mate, yeah. I'm gonna give that video a push this week. I'll wait until this episode comes out, and I'm gonna be pushing how to rake a bunker with Johnny Tenerife.
I love the fact that we had every intention to talk about data. We're 26 minutes into this podcast, and all we're doing is talking about Belfry days. But actually, I do have one other story. I would like to say one other story before we go.
We might as well just make this the Belfry episode.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, let's make it a Belfry episode. We should get them to sponsor this podcast, shouldn't we? Not that we've not been trying. So you worked, as in Trotty, you worked in the US Ryder Cup team room. Bubs, you were raking bunkers. I was working in the European Ryder Cup room that particular week. There's a few amazing things that I saw that week. One of them, though, right at the end, Europeans have won the Ryder Cup. Massive party, huge amount of respect for David Duval, Hal Sutton. They both came up, congratulated the team in the team room, sat, and David Duval was there until like 5, 6 o'clock the following morning, by the way. So he was really there, from a peer-to-peer player. I thought he had a lot of respect for his colleagues. Amazing. And anyway, as you can imagine, these guys have just won the Ryder Cup, and they're all getting absolutely galactic. There's Guinness everywhere. There's whiskey everywhere. I mean, it's a hell of a mess. Me and Louis was working in the team room as well. So Louis says, the Welsh lad, he then says to Ian Woosnam, who's one of the vice captains, "Oh, Woozy, let's get a photo." So Woozy comes in between me and Louis for this photo. Now, I am not blessed with stature, but Woozy's definitely not blessed with stature. I don't know. Louis might have it. But then Woosnam, who's shorter than me, he gets his arm around Louis. He's trying to get his arm around me. He elbows me square in the eye, right? I've got a shiner for 5 days. Thanks, Wheezy. Oh, what a night that was.
I didn't know that. I've not heard that one.
Picture. We got to find that picture.
There's got to be a picture there somewhere. I think, if it still exists somewhere, there's one eye looks good, the other one's watering down.
Louis must have been killing himself laughing.
He was. I think a couple of days later, he had me by the throat against the wall, I think.
I don't know if I've
another
told
story.
You. I mean, there's a lot. Do we want to go there with these stories? Because there's a lot of. I got a lot of good stories from that week. I guess we'll keep it rolling. So the way they did, I'll tell you a serious equipment one first. So the way they did the hotel. So in a hotel, you obviously have two sides of the corridors, and it had the names in stars. So it would say like Duval was there on his own. So it would say David, and then the last name on the other side, Duval. It would say Tiger, Erin, Woods, and it would say Hal and Hal's wife, I don't know who she was, Sutton. So you'd have it on both sides of the corridor. And I remember this story maybe is a bit, I probably can't tell you the full. I won't tell you the end bit, which is really funny, but I'll tell you the start bit. So we ended, obviously, the first room you go to is Tiger Woods, and they've all gone out for the opening ceremony. And me and this Geordie, so another kid from the Northeast, had to, and he was from the Belfry Hotel up there, the De Vere Hotel up there, like the hotel chain. and he wasn't a golfer. Me and him have pass keys to all the rooms. So we go into Tiger's room first. Bed was made perfectly. And it had, because we had to put these like souvenirs for the week into the room. And on the bed, there was a message, like it was a religious pillow that he had perfectly placed on the bed. It was almost like hand sewn. So like a God message on there, believer message, whatever. Bed was made, cool. So then I'm like, room's immaculate. Let's go into the club room and the clothing room and see what's going on. So we go in, and I'm in there, and I can't tell a story in its truest because it would just be not appropriate. But I pick up the...
I really want to know now.
No, I know, I'll have to tell you after. I pick up the driver, and there's no loft on the driver. Nike it was. I was like, oh, that's nice. And I'm like getting really into this bag. I get the Scotty Cameron out, and I'm like, oh, look at this thing, really light. Little did I know that years later, I would be holding that exact putter, trying to help him with a tailor-made putter. I didn't, obviously, you have no idea. And this is like in 2002 or whatever. Anyway, I turn round, and this Geordie kid has found a gift from Scotty Cameron, a Ryder Cup head cover gift that he's unboxed and freaking got out. I'm like, geez. Next thing, I look up, and he's holding a pair of, like, let's call it swimwear in the air. And I'm just like, this kid's off the wall. Like, we got to get out of here. So obviously I re-tied the gift pack from Scotty Cameron, and I'm holding this like swimwear, and I'm like, what do I do with this? He's gone, this kid, left the room. And I'm thinking, we got to get this exactly how it was. Like, I was stood there with pants in my hand and a freaking Scotty Cameron limited edition thing. It was crazy. And then I had to go, I don't know if you boys knew when I started my shift, I had to go to the fax machine every start of the shift to put the US team had a message board on. And there were messages coming in from the White House. There were messages from the late Payne Stewart's wife. There were messages from Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer. I'd probably get in a lot of trouble for this, but screw it. So obviously I had to print one off. And you print it off the fax machine, and it's doing all the bleeps and stuff. I don't know if you remember a fax machine. Comes off. I look at it. I'm like, wow. I was a big Payne Stewart fan. I was like, that's amazing. And I sort of look out the peripheral of my eye, and I'm in like this office, and I look at, there's a photocopier, and I'm like, bang, straight. I did a copy for me, didn't I? Still got them. Still got a US team room photocopied messages. I passed them like about a year ago because I've moved countries, continents. I'm sure I can get caught for this now if there's trouble for copying something that isn't yours, probably, but we're 20 years ago. So it was just very interesting to see like the messages that were coming in. And then one of the other nights, I can tell you this story, there was a table tennis room in the games room for the pros, and dial-up internet was a thing. So Mickelson would dive on the dial-up internet. He couldn't sleep very well. His wife was pregnant at the time. And he'd be down there. I had the night shifts, and he'd be down in the room all the time. And Tiger would be playing ping pong against, he was a great table tennis player against whoever else was on the team. There was another player that was great. Anyway, Tiger would go to bed really early, disappeared to bed early. And then me and these lads, this is again a funny story. There were many stories, but I'll just leave it at this one. Me and these lads were stood in a line, like letting the players leave after dinner. And we're all just stood there in our waistcoats and our little dicky boats because we've got to clear the room and get it ready for room service. We were just like, you know, staff on the F&B for the night. So Erin Woods has walked past us, and she'd have been like 26 probably. And, you know, we were all like 20, 19. And me, the Newcastle kid, and another kid, all male. And she just walked past. And obviously we've given it one of these at the corner of her eye. And we've just kind of followed her as she's walked past us. And we've all given it one of these as she's kept going. And we're all like, geez, I mean, mint. Like, as in like Barbie doll box bird. Like, tremendous. And we're all just like, Christ alive. And the Geordie's just gone, bloody hell. And I'm like, yeah, unbelievable. And with that, Paul Azinger has caught us looking at literally all, and he's just shouted across the room, "Easy, boys!" And the whole room has turned and looked at us, and we've all gone, oh, as if we're looking somewhere else. We're just like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing here? And obviously the Geordie didn't care. He's just like, whoa. And I was like, Christ alive, we're going to get chucked out of this before we even start. But it was a quality week. And again, there's mountains of stories. But we should probably get on. Someone may have tuned in for the actual purpose of the podcast.
I know they've left now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could kick it off. I'm going to go and fill up my coffee cup. You kick it off. It's very early for me in the United States here, so carry on. I'll give you 30 seconds, lads.
Gee, thanks, Troy. All right, well, let's get into a little bit of data. I know, Bubs, you've kindly put something together as you do most weeks now, which is great. One of the key things you've nailed down is key data for performance and how to change key data. I'm really interested to know what that means to you and what that would mean to, I kind of want to split it up a little bit. So somebody that would actually be a really good golfer. So maybe someone that's really, really low single figures, scratch type golfer, but then also someone that might be off about 15, 16. Should they be looking at the same data points when it comes to data that would be relevant for their performance? Over to you.
It's going to be different. It's going to be player dependent and ability dependent. I mean, you're going to probably have a better answer to this. How many data points do you get on full swing? 15?
On the kit, you get 16 data points.
16 data points. So if you're like elite, like really, really elite, good player, let's talk tour players, maybe not them, but someone on their team will be aware of all those data points. And it may well be that they look at certain things to enhance performance. It may be that they look at apex. So how high is the peak height? Whether that be for irons or woods or what it may be, and they might decide that they want to tweak that a little bit because it's going to help them hold a green when they're playing US Open. And then it might be a case that they do that through a swing change, or it might be they do it through an equipment change. They might be looking at spin rates. They might be looking at the amount of curve on a golf ball. They're going to be looking at all those data points, as well as the ones that people have heard of: club path, attack angle, face angle, those kind of things. And those little tweaks in those numbers can have small effect on score, which ultimately have a big effect on, your overall performance across the season. When you look at the more recreational golfer, the golfer who probably would admit they don't hit it as well as they would like, they're probably not going to be overly concerned with apex and the amount of curve that's on a golf ball. They're going to be looking more specifically at attack angle, which is really key for ball striking. If you're really struggling to strike the ball well, you're often going to find the answer in attack angle. We can dive into that a little bit more in a moment. If you're struggling to keep the ball on the planet, you're probably looking at club path, club face, and that relationship to each other. And you're probably looking a little bit at smash factor. Smash factor is essentially the ratio between club speed and ball speed. And that will give someone with a trained eye a real insight to how well you're striking it. So with path, face, attack angle, and smash factor, you're really getting an insight as to how well are they striking it. Are they delivering the club appropriately for that club that's in the hand, whether it be an iron or a driver? And the path and the face are going to give you real insights as to how the ball's curving through the air. So those four numbers, for someone who just feels like they're not at the level they want to be at, you can gain a lot of information from there. And then you start looking at spin rates. Probably not that important at that level because that can be affected by attack angle and the other things. So I think it does depend on the level of golfer. It's probably going to get a lot more granular when you get to the tour level. But for the majority of golfers listening, those numbers are the key to performance. And I would say that the golfers that I work with are generally mid to high handicappers. They're recreational golfers. They play once a week. They maybe practice. I'm pretty much always working within those four numbers at some point in the lesson.
So then another question which follows alongside that, and I know this will definitely drop into Trotty's side of things as well. But if you're looking at the data and maybe one or two of those data points is out, at which point are you deciding that this is a fundamental swing change, or this could be an adjustment when it comes to the equipment that player is using themselves? How do you define which point you should prioritize?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely does cross over. You can. I think when you look at those, let's just pull out those four data points we mentioned: the path, the face, the attack angle, and the strike, which is smash factor. Any coach who's worth their money, that's a decent coach, should be able to influence those numbers in a lesson. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be coaching the person into a quote unquote perfect position. It might be something as simple as the face is, let's say, too open at impact. The golfer might actually have a pretty neutral grip, but the coach decides they're going to strengthen the top hand because that would close the club face more and they would improve that number. So you should be able to influence those numbers. Now, it might not be I'll do it again, quote unquote, the right way. It may well be that you introduce what some might consider as a fault, but it's impacting those numbers. So you should be able to change those numbers. And I really dislike the premise of those people who talk about lessons and they say you're probably going to get worse before you get better. I really dislike that because it depends what you're after. So if someone came to me for a lesson and they wanted 18-month, 2-year plan, I want to play better in 2 years. I'm really dedicated. I've just retired. I got more time. I want to play better in 2 years. We might do some things in the early stages during those first few lessons where they're not actually seeing improvement, but we're laying the foundations to say we're going to work towards this point. But if you walk through the door, you hand your hard-earned cash to a coach, you should be able to say to that coach, make me better today, and they should be able to do it. And I would say 99% of the time I can do that. Yes, you're going to get the odd case where the golfer struggles with what you're trying to get to them or they react in a funny way, but you should be able to influence that data. If I move the ball back in the stance, I'm affecting attack angle straight away. If I move the weight distribution and setup, I'm influencing attack angle. If I change the grip, I'm influencing face angle. You should be able to change those numbers. The key thing for a coach and a player, because if you're trying to do this on your own with social media and YouTube, is understanding what you're trying to do. So I've said this before, but it goes to the point of you have to start with what's happening out there. What is the ball doing? Is it going too high? Is it going left to right? Is it missing on the left? Is it whatever it may be? What's the ball doing? What do I want it to do? And then you look at the impact, which is where the full swing kit is so valuable because it tells you what's happening at impact. And you say, well, what's happening at impact, which is causing the ball to do whatever it's doing? Okay, it's this number. My strike is inconsistent. The full swing kit says I'm too shallow with my irons. Great. How do I then change that? And it could be just a simple case of let's stick the ball back in your stance and let's set 60% of the weight on the front foot. Is that right? Possibly not, but does it make the golfer better? Yes. So it goes, that's how I would do it. And then as a coach, when it comes to like irons and drive, then you start to look at if the spin's not right, if the peak height's not right, then you maybe start to go, hand them over to someone like Trotty. I've got this guy or this girl striking it better. Now the flight's not quite where we need it to be. Maybe the shafts, maybe the irons, maybe the loss need looking at as a separate. But I say the key thing would be if you want to change your ball flight, you've got to change data. It's not that hard to do. Some golfers overcomplicate it. It really isn't that hard to do. You've got to be doing the right thing. And if you can change data, you'll change ball flight.
So actually, just to touch on that a little bit, we talk about that in the office sometimes, where it's very easy from a business perspective, and I think this applies to everything that we do in life. But it's very easy to add complexity to everything, and actually, the true skill is to be able to simplify everything. And when you listen to some of the greatest sports people of all time, they have these really simplistic views on their own game and how they perform. So I totally acknowledge and relate to that as a particular point. My question as an extension to that is what happens in the incidents though, when you have a player maybe plays off, 10 and reasonably decent, strikes it reasonably well, ball flight, not a lot of curvature, hits the ball quite straight, short game's okay, putting's okay, but still basically plays off 10. Like what kind of data would you be looking for where a person's all-round game is actually okay, but more or less plays off 10? It's still not that low.
The answer still lies in the data because, if they're, let's put them up there with a 7-iron. If they're hitting this 7-iron, pre-neutral flight, the attack angle's decent, the trajectory's pretty good, and they're hitting good shots. If they're off 10, there's a reason why. There's going to be some of those data points that aren't going to be as consistent as they want them to be. So it may well be that they will hit 15, 20 shots, and you look at an average, and the average looks great. But when you dive in, it might be, for example, that the club face on average is pretty zeroed to the flag, which looks great. But when you dive into the data, it might be jumping around between, 2 to 3 degrees open, 2 to 3 degrees closed. And so that golfer's missing some left and right, hence they're off 10. But when you average it all out, it looks pretty decent. So when you're looking at high handicappers, the data jumps out at you because it's often, I hate saying the word, it's often wrong. The path is out to win, the attack's not where it needs to be, the phase is open. When you start getting down to better players, you can often see the average data really good. But when you pull out one data set and you look at it individually, you're seeing consistency. So then you look at the golfing and say, well, okay, why is this golfer variable in their attack angle? Why are they 3 down on some swings and 6 down on the other swings? And then you start looking the swing to say, well, why is that the case? And then you do some swing work to try and improve the tolerances on that. So the answer is always in the data. There's no one playing off 10 who's just got incredible data on every single shot. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I do feel that players like that, to your point, attack angle varies so much. One thing that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but especially with amateur golfers, the quality of the strike is absolutely vital. I mean, my time on tour and Trotty, way, way more experienced than I am. The amount of times you'd be working with a tour player and you'd say, "Did you strike it out the middle? Was that a little bit toey? Was that a bit at the bottom?" And you're almost validating their impression of that strike and cross-referencing that to the data because it makes such a massive difference, especially with an amateur golf. If they hit the driver off the bottom versus off the top side of the face, you're going to get wildly different attack angles. Same thing for toe to heel. Starting direction is going to be hugely different. And I sometimes think that amateur golfers have a really bad strike and they'll give you, I came too far from the inside, or I was a bit too far over the top. And actually, you just struck it shit. That's what happened there. Move on to the next shot.
Yeah. I mean, I've touched on it before, but I tend to deal with 16, 17 handicap golfers and above. I coach everybody, but that's the kind of core set of golfers. I had this theory a while back, coaching a lot of people, and I put it out there on social media, and I can't remember exactly what it was, a few years ago now, and I said something like, you get 2 options. You shoot level par, but you misstrike all your irons. They just happen to end up on the green, and you 2-putt and you shoot level par. Or you shoot 4 over, but every iron shot is right at the centre, divot after the ball, crisp feeling. Majority of people went for the second option. And I think that talks to the point that if you want to play this game and enjoy it more, just get your strike better. Now, the chances are your scores will come down, but even if they don't, if you're playing off 10, you strike it better and you're still playing off 10, it's more enjoyable because it's more rewarding to stand there over an iron shot. We've touched on it numerous times in this podcast. If we could just give every golfer out there once that feeling of a good attack angle with the right amount of compression, which is dynamic loft and attack angle and face angle all factored in, and we give them that, and they can feel it once, they would be desperate to get that every single time because you cannot replicate that feeling. It's incredible. And most golfers, unfortunately, never experience that.
So question for you now then, Trotty, similar sort of points. I'm pretty sure it was you that told me this, so forgive me if it's not, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about Paul McGinley. I'm going back several years here. And Paul McGinley would hit a shot and he would say, I've hit a 2-3 yard fade there. But actually, as an observer of the ball flight and also looking at the data, you would say that it was actually a very, very soft draw. So my question to you is, how do you see, based on all the experience that you've had out on tour, you've got all of this data, how do you link the useful bits of data back to the tour players' preferences as to how they like to see the ball flight? Because sometimes you're fitting ball flights that actually aren't that perfect, shall we say. You're fitting what we would describe as a faulty ball flight because it fits that player's way of playing golf. How do you work within that sort of environment where you're manipulating the data that way for the players' own objectives?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And I think that what people need to do here is realize, I think we've given away a lot in these podcasts about our age and where we grew up. So we were of an era where the golf swing was a little different to how it's taught today. Point number one. Tour players that I came out to work with certainly swung it differently, used different equipment. As a result, they swung it. So everything Chris has said about the things he works on for teaching, I agree with. With fitting, I'd look at different things like what's important to me. Spin rate is important. Launch angle is important. Yes, it's impacted by angle of attack. Yes, it's impacted by smash factor, which effectively is centeredness of strike and energy off the blade. But then you're looking at apex and you're looking at angle of descent. Now, the number one thing for me on tour, and this is where a tour fitter is very different from and working for TaylorMade. A tour fitter is very, in my generation, tour fitter is very different to a fitter that you go and see it wherever it may be, Golf Galaxy, Club Champion, whatever, you're hitting it into a net. A tour fitter's seeing the whole ball flight, which I think my generation and above tour fitter looks at the ball flight and listens to the strike before they go to the launch monitor. Simple as. And if you can have chance, you look at the divot direction. And if you have chance, you look at the strike location on the blade if you can't hear it. But with the amount of fittings I've done on tour and the amount I played and players have been around, I can tell you where it's hit just from A, T height, B, looking at the launch window, and C, listening to the sound. So that lower strike in the blade or higher strike in the blade, got it. I think where the issue has come in with fitting over the years is that people have got too reliant only on the launch monitor. You can't have a tour level indoor fitting. It doesn't off of a mat. It doesn't exist. And I think that is the issue here, is that the marketplace is accepting of indoor fittings off mats is a good thing. It's not a tour level thing. It's not a tour level experience. Yes, you can go indoors. You can get in your full swing sim 100%, and you can hit draws, fades, and leave the shot tracer on, give you the visual. What an amazing tool. But to fit a golf club to the spec that these guys would go out and play it at Bay Hill next week, no, that's not what we're doing here. Now, in terms of players having windows that aren't optimal for ball flight, a launch monitor company 10 years ago put out the optimizer, and then fitters would just lean on the optimizer. I didn't like the optimizer, never liked the optimizer tool. I don't think it's relevant because Martin Keimer launched it below optimal and spun it above optimal and was world number one. Sergio Garcia launched it below optimal and spun it above optimal and was the best driver of the golf ball overall driving for 15 years. So are you trying to tell me that you are trying to tell me there's an optimal? There's not. And if McGinley, the way he hits it, had tried to find it, because that was the name we used, a different way of hitting it, wouldn't have found optimal. Harrington, with all the weight out in the toe, but was the best player on planet Earth for a period in time. So
let me ask you. Let me just jump in and ask you then. As this data started to come out, did you have to try and rein players in from trying to chase those optimal numbers?
No, what I learned, and I still haven't been able to put it into practice, is that players don't care about optimal. Players care about results. So you said there earlier, you could give your followers, scuff it onto the green, 2-putt, shoot level par, or strike every iron and shoot 4 over. And every single touring pro would take option number 1. And the problem I have in my own personal journey is I have dived all over the map on wanting to please the camera, wanting to please the launch monitor. And I'm not the only one in this bracket. And as a result, I've gone from hitting right to lefts as a kid, left to rights as a decent player, now back to trying to hit right to lefts. And the truth is, I played better when I hit left to right. But I don't like the way it looks.
But there are...
If you're trying to please the camera, you need to start by getting some closer fit.
But the point I'm trying to make is the goal, and this is why the coaches that I like to listen to and see have come from a generation that it's not just launch monitor, because I think that the ball doesn't lie. And that was something that was told to me early. And early, I was told, you don't know what a good shot feels like. And I was a decent player when I was told that. You need to understand what a good shot looks and feels like. I know what it looks and feels like now. And I know when I go out and shoot flipping 75, I'll have hit a lot of great shots to shoot 75. And the skill of shooting 65 is nothing to do with how good I hit it. It's all to do with how you chip and putt and how you manage your targets and your mind. That's exactly what it is.
I do think there was a window of time where I think some players were definitely trying to hit more of that optimum ball flight, but not that many. All of them were really about the performance on the scorecard more than the performance of the ball flight. But one does spring to mind a little bit. I did some work with Michael Campbell, who won the US Open back in the 90s. And he was a big hitter at the time during the 90s, hit the ball a long way. But he did that with very, very different equipment at the time. You're talking Balata golf balls, small-headed drivers, steel-headed drivers more than they were titanium, and now obviously carbon. Very, very different. So when it was like 2015, for example, 20 years later, he still had this very steep attack angle, which would be like -5, -6, -7 on the attack angle. But everybody else who was coming onto the tour was hitting the ball further and further and further than him. So he tried to change his golf swing to accommodate more of an upward trend into the ball. But he couldn't perform that way because that's not how his golf swing functioned. So although he was gaining more distance, he wasn't actually gaining any more performance. So it's kind of funny where you can actually look at what an optimum ball flight would be, but the optimum ball flight is only based on what the launch and spin conditions are, as well as the air density, and not actually, it doesn't ever really factor in the playing style and the playing habits of the golfer. And that at the highest level, and Trotty's the man to answer this or validate this, but at the highest level, that's the only thing that matters. Have I shot a lower score than you? That's it. Totally. It doesn't matter how you do it.
And the household names also to go into that bracket: Woosnam, Alathabal, Mike Weir. Yep. Same situation. Yep. 3 players in the same that come to mind immediately that lost it based on persimmon, Balata going to metal and launch monitors. And if you look at them, like Alathabal really managed to stay off all that stuff. And I think there's huge validation for that as a player. But now in the modern day, I think you need to know your numbers. You need to know how to impact them. If you self-diagnose, by the way, the amount of people who self-diagnose and get it so wrong is insane. It's almost human nature. I've been playing golf recently with a couple of guys and their kids, and my son's gone back out to play a bit of golf. And you hear the kids self-diagnosing way off, beating themselves up. It's the hardest game in the world, boys. Like, relax. Well, and then they'd look to me like, well, what's happened here? Where's the ball gone? Right. So what's happened? Face is open. Where's the ball gone? Left. What's happened? Face is closed. Done. For the right-hander. Done. Simple.
I think going to what you were just saying there, Daz, and I think why it's so risky, and I think this is an important takeaway from anyone listening to this. You know, you jump on some technology now and you look at, let's say, a driver swing and you see you're down by 2 or 3 degrees. So you're hitting down by 2.5 and you think, right, I want to hit up on the ball because that's going to give me more distance. You simply cannot isolate one number and change it. If you change that attack angle from down by 2.5 to up, you are also changing path. You're also changing dynamic loft. You're also changing face angle. You're changing launch. You're changing spin. Everything is changing. So it's so risky to look at one number. And I think that's what probably, I'm guessing, Trotty, the best fitters do and what the best coaches do is you have to look at a player and you have to almost hypothesize as to, if I change this attack, what is going to happen to the path, the face, the launch, the spin? You have to sort of play that out in your mind and go, is that the right thing? Because it may well be that you say, do you know what? I can give that player the right attack angle, but it's going to have a negative effect on this. And actually you make the call to go, do you know what? One bad number is probably a better place to live than changing that and getting 3 or 4 bad numbers. And that's, I think, the skill of the fitter and the coach.
It all depends where you're at, right? And that's where, again, tour fitting is so different. And I meant to say this earlier. If I'm going up against, at the start of the year, a Ping, a Titleist, a Callaway, well, the number one number for me right there is speed. If you show a tour player in 2026 2 mile an hour more ball speed, they will give you the time of day to figure out how to dial in the other numbers. Because they know, because it's been driven into them, that if they hit it further by 4 or 5, 6 yards, they'll make more money. It's been proven. Now, that is the biggest difference between the players that we mentioned earlier and the players that we're in now.
Okay. So, well, I got one question. Well, I think you might have even answered that.
So basically, mate, just to close out, because Lauren was sending a message in the chat there. No, I'm nishing you. Lauren sent a message. That's why we all stopped.
All right, we'll close it out then.
That's how it's a question. No, we're not closing out. That's how.
Just thank everyone and just get on with it, will you?
No, that's how respectful we are of Lauren, because we all just were like, shit, Lauren's written something here. Everyone pay attention. Because Lauren doesn't write stuff.
Didn't they? What did she say?
Yeah, we all were like, something's happened here in the White House. Everyone pay attention. Lauren's on. All I was going to close out with there was just to say to you that my conclusion, to put a loop on this, tour fitting, extremely different to consumer fitting. I 1,000% agree with Chris. The answer's in the data, 100%. But I do think that club fitting is going down a route now with other companies emerging that you can manipulate the clubs to impact the way you swing it. If you've got a good enough player. So, for example, if I play something at 4 degrees flat and I'm an early extender, meaning I hump the goat, I stand out on my pot, come out of my angles, tilt back, try and get that ball in the air. Well, you got to keep your arse out the way and in your posture if the club is super flat. So you can use the fitting really to impact. Again, if I play a driver, I was struggling to drive the golf ball when Chris was last out here, really bad. So played a driver for 2 months with almost 11.5, 12 degrees loft. I've never played a driver with that much loft in my life. And then I started using it off the floor, and that gets you out of trying to help the ball in the air, because as soon as your head tilts back, you flip. And as soon as you flip, that face to path number that Chris is talking about loses its passive nature through the hitting area. And the more consistent you can keep face to path. So going back to Van der Velde, the fella that nearly won at Carnoustie, was in the ditch there in 99 or whenever it was. I worked with him in Qatar years ago. Mate, his face to path was delivered on the same number for 45 balls in a row. And I was like, I think the launch monitor's broken. I said, John, I think something. I said, I can't. I said, I don't know what like the ball's not curved. You've given me the same numbers for like half a basket of balls. Something's wrong with the launch monitor. And he says, no. The launch monitor is fine. I was like, whatever, boss. Freaking, this is wasting my time. So, anyways, no more stories. But tour fitting, consumers fitting, very different. Daryl, I'll let you read and put a wrap on all this. Sorry that we took so long, everyone, to get to this subject. And I actually have to be somewhere else. So it's me that's called. We've got a call time on this. I apologize.
No, we're all good. Well, if anyone does have any questions related to data, feel free to drop us a message or drop us an email. Thanks for listening to the podcast show as per usual.
No. You ain't just wrapping it up like that. Get on Lauren's freaking note here. This is awesome.
I'm trying to do it. Lauren just said, if possible, try thank the viewers. Keep it light. We've had a lot more views recently on YouTube, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to appease Lauren by actually doing that. But as per usual, you just can't help yourself, can it? You're like heroin for a podcast studio. That's what you are. Like, that's what you do.
He stole my punchline earlier.
You stole your punchline. I mean, who's doing the jokes around here?
Listen, I want everyone listening to this to go and watch Johnny Tenerife's How to Rake a Bunker. That's what we need to get out of this session.
It's like having our very own
link for that.
It's like having our very own heckler live every podcast.
Yeah, it is. He's like the guy out of Happy Gilmore, isn't he? Jackass.
Yeah. Got a big day of filming today, boys. Kingdom bound right now.
All right. Well, you go enjoy that. And thanks again for everybody that has listened to today's podcast show. You can find us in all the usual places. If you found us, you've already found us on the right places. So share far and wide, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.